The energy policy of India is largely defined by the country's expanding energy deficit and increased focus on developing alternative sources of energy, particularly nuclear, solar and wind energy. The primary energy consumption in India is the third biggest after China and USA, with 5.3% global share in the year 2015. The total primary energy consumption from crude oil, natural gas, coal, nuclear energy, hydroelectricity, wind power, biomass electricity and solar power is 595 mtoe in the year 2013. In the year 2013, India's net imports are nearly 144.3 million tons of crude oil, 16 mtoe of LNG and 95 mtoe coal, totaling to 255.3 mtoe of primary energy, which is equal to 42.9% of total primary energy consumption. About 70% of India's electricity generation capacity is from fossil fuels. India is largely dependent on fossil fuel imports to meet its energy demands. By 2030, India's dependence on energy imports is expected to exceed 53% of the country's total energy consumption. In 2009-10, the country imported 159.26 million tons of crude oil, which amounts to 80% of its domestic crude oil consumption and 31% of the country's total. Imports are oil imports. By the end of calendar year 2015, India has become power surplus country with huge power generation capacity idling for want of electricity demand. Due to rapid economic expansion, India has one of the world's fastest growing energy markets and is expected to be the second largest contributor to the increase in global energy demand by 2035, accounting for 18% of the rise in global energy consumption. Given India's growing energy demands and limited domestic fossil fuel reserves, the country has ambitious plans to expand its renewable and most worked-out nuclear power program. India has the world's fifth largest wind power market and also plans to add about 100,000 megawatts of solar power capacity by 2020. India also envisages to increase the contribution of nuclear power to overall electricity generation capacity from 4.2% to 9% within 25 years. The country has 5 nuclear reactors under construction and plans to construct 18 additional nuclear reactors by 2025. Power generation capacity. In India, the installed capacity of utility power plants is 267,637 megawatts as on the 31st of March 2015, and the gross electricity generated by utilities is 1,106 terawatt-hours, which includes auxiliary power consumption of power generating stations. The installed capacity of captive power plants in industries is 47,082 megawatts as on the 31st of March 2015 and generated 166.426 billion kilowatt-hours in the financial year 2014-15. In addition, there are nearly 75,000 megawatts aggregate capacity diesel generator sets with units sizes between 100 kVA and 1000 kVA. All India per capita consumption of electricity is nearly 1,010 kilowatt-hours during the financial year 2014-15. Total installed power generation capacity for state-wise breakup refer to states of India by installed power capacity. Energy conservation. Energy conservation has emerged as a major policy objective, and the Energy Conservation Act 2001 was passed by the Indian Parliament in September 2001. 35.5% of the population still live without access to electricity. This act requires large energy consumers to adhere to energy consumption norms, new buildings to follow the Energy Conservation Building Code, and appliances to meet energy performance standards and to display energy consumption labels. The Act also created the Bureau of Energy Efficiency to implement the provisions of the Act. In the year 2015, Prime Minister Mr. Modi launched a scheme called Prakash Path, urging people to use LED lamps in place of other lamps to drastically cut down lighting power requirement. Energy-efficient fans at subsidized price are offered to the electricity consumers by the electricity distribution companies to decrease peak electricity load. Rural electrification. The key development objectives of the power sector is supply of electricity to all areas, including rural areas, as mandated in Section 6 of the Electricity Act. Both the central government and state governments would jointly endeavor to achieve this objective at the earliest. Consumers, particularly those who are ready to pay a tariff which reflects efficient costs, have the right to get uninterrupted 24 hours supply of quality power. About 56% of rural households have not yet been electrified, even though many of these households are willing to pay for electricity. Determined efforts should be made to ensure that the task of rural electrification for securing electricity access to all households, and also ensuring that electricity reaches poor and marginal sections of the society at reasonable rates, is completed within the next 5 years. India is using renewable sources of energy like hydel energy, wind energy, and solar energy to electrify villages. Reliable rural electrification system will aim at creating the following: rural electrification distribution backbone with at least one 33/11 kV substation in every block, and more if required as per load, networked and connected appropriately to the state transmission system. Emanating from REDB would be supply feeders and one distribution transformer at least in every village settlement. Household electrification from distribution transformer to connect every household on demand. Wherever above is not feasible, decentralized distributed generation facilities together with local distribution network would be provided so that every household gets access to electricity. This would be done either through conventional and non-conventional methods of electricity generation, whichever is more suitable and economical. Non-conventional sources of energy could be utilized even where grid connectivity exists, provided it is found to be cost-effective. Development of infrastructure would also cater for requirement of agriculture and other economic activities, including irrigation pump sets, small and medium industries, cardi and village industries, cold chain and social services like health and education. Particular attention would be given in household electrification to Dalit bastis, tribal areas and other weaker sections. Rural Electrification Corporation of India. A Government of India enterprise will be the nodal agency at central government level to implement the program for achieving the goals set by National Common Minimum Program of giving access to electricity to all the households in next 5 years. Its role is being suitably enlarged to ensure timely implementation of rural electrification projects. Targeted expansion in access to electricity for rural households in the desired time frame can be achieved if the distribution licensees recover at least the cost of electricity and related O&M expenses from consumers, except for lifeline support to households below the poverty line who would need to be adequately subsidized. Subsidies should be properly targeted at the intended beneficiaries in the most efficient manner. Government recognizes the need for providing necessary capital subsidy and soft long-term debt finances for investment in rural electrification, as this would reduce the cost of supply in rural areas. Adequate funds would need to be made available for the same through the plan process. Also, commensurate organizational support would need to be created for timely implementation. The central government would assist the state governments in achieving this. Necessary institutional framework would need to be put in place not only to ensure creation of rural electrification infrastructure but also to operate and maintain supply system for securing reliable power supply to consumers. Responsibility of operation and AMP maintenance and cost recovery could be discharged by utilities through appropriate arrangements with panchayats, local authorities, NGOs and other franchisees, etc. The gigantic task of rural electrification requires appropriate cooperation among various agencies of the state governments, central government and participation of the community. Education and awareness programs would be essential for creating demand for electricity and for achieving the objective of effective community participation. The electricity industry was restructured by the Electricity Act 2003, which unbundled the vertically integrated electricity supply utilities in each state of India into a transmission utility, and a number of generating and distribution utilities. Electricity regulatory commissions in each state set tariffs for electricity sales. The Act also enables open access on the transmission system, allowing any consumer to buy electricity from any generator. Significantly, it also requires each regulatory commission to specify the minimum percentage of electricity that each distribution utility must source from renewable energy sources. The introduction of availability-based tariff has brought about stability to a great extent in the Indian transmission grids. However, presently it is becoming outdated in a power surplus grid. A report in 2005 suggested that there was room for improvement in terms of the efficiency of electricity generation in India, and suggested that two factors possibly responsible for the inefficiency were public ownership of utilities and low capacity utilization. Rural electrification status: oil and gas. India imports nearly 75% of its 4.3 million barrels per day crude oil needs but exports nearly 1.35 million barrels per day of refined petroleum products, which is nearly 30% of its total production of refined oil products. India has built surplus world-class refining capacity using imported crude oil for exporting refined petroleum products. The net imports of crude oil is lesser by 1/4 after accounting exports and imports of refined petroleum products. During the financial year 2012-13, the production of crude oil is 37.86 million tons and 40,679 million standard cubic meters natural gas. The net import of crude oil and AMP petroleum products is 146.70 million tons worth of 5,611 rupees and 40 paise billions. This includes 9.534 million tons of LNG imports worth of Rs. $282.15 billion. Internationally, LNG price equals 24.36 cubic meters of natural gas equals 29.2 liters. Diesel is fixed below crude oil price in terms of heating value. LNG is slowly gaining its role as direct-use fuel in road and marine transport without regasification. By the end of June 2016, LNG price has fallen by nearly 50% below its oil parity price, making it more economical fuel than diesel, gas oil in transport sector. In the year 2012-13, India consumed 15.744 million tons petrol and 69.179 million tons diesel, which are mainly produced from imported crude oil at huge foreign exchange. Outgo. Use of natural gas for heating, cooking and electricity generation is not economical, as more and more locally produced natural gas will be converted into LNG for use in transport sector to reduce crude oil imports. In addition to the conventional natural gas production, coal gasification, coal bed methane, coal mine methane and biogas digesters, renewable natural gas will also become source of LNG, forming decentralized base for production of LNG to cater to the widely distributed demand. There is possibility to convert most of the heavy-duty vehicles into LNG-fueled vehicles to reduce diesel consumption drastically with operational cost and least pollution benefits. Also, the break-even price at user end for switching from imported coal to LNG in electricity generation is estimated near $6 per MMBTU. The state-owned Oil and Natural Gas Corporation acquired shares in oil fields in countries like Sudan, Syria, Iran, and Nigeria, investments that have led to diplomatic tensions with the United States. Because of political instability in the Middle East and increasing domestic demand for energy, India is keen on decreasing its dependency on OPEC to meet its oil demand and increasing its energy security. Several Indian oil companies, primarily led by ONGC and Reliance Industries, have started a massive hunt for oil in several regions in India, including Rajasthan, Krishna Godavari Basin and northeastern Himalayas. India is developing an offshore gas field in Mozambique. The proposed Iran-Pakistan-India pipeline is a part of India's plan to meet its increasing energy demand. Coal. India has the world's fourth largest coal reserves. In India, coal is the bulk of primary energy contributor with 54.5% share out of the total 595 MTOE in the year 2013. India is the third top coal producer in 2013 with 7.6% production share of coal in the world. Top 5 hard and brown coal producing countries in 2013 are China 3,680, United States 893, India 605, Australia 478 and Indonesia 421. However, India ranks 5th in global coal production at 228 MTOE in the year 2013, when its inferior quality coal tonnage is converted into tons of oil equivalent. Coal-fired power plants account for 59% of India's installed electricity capacity. After electricity production, coal is also used for cement production in substantial quantity. In the year 2013, India imported nearly 95 MTOE of steam coal and coking coal, which is 29% of total consumption, to meet the demand in electricity, cement and steel production. Gasification of coal. Lignite-produced syngas are coal gas or coke oven gas, which is a mixture of hydrogen, carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide gases. Coal gas can be converted converted into synthetic natural gas by using Fischer-Tropsch process at low pressure and high temperature. Coal gas can also be produced by underground coal gasification, where the coal deposits are located deep in the ground or uneconomical to mine. The coal, CNG and LNG are emerging as economical alternatives to diesel oil with the escalation in international crude oil prices. Synthetic natural gas production technologies have tremendous scope to meet the transport sector requirements fully using the locally available coal. In India, Dankuni coal complex is producing syngas which is piped to the industrial uses in Calcutta. Many coal-based fertilizer plants which are shut down can also be retrofitted economically to produce SNG, as LNG and CNG fetch good price by substituting imports. Recently, Indian government fixed the natural gas price at producer end as $5.61 per MMBTU on net calorific value basis, which is at par with the estimated SNG price from coal. Biofuels. Gasification of biomass yields wood gas syngas which can be converted into a substitute natural gas by methanation. Nearly 750 million tons of non-edible biomass is available annually in India, which can be put to high value addition use and substitute imported crude oil, coal, LNG, urea fertilizer, nuclear fuels, etc. It is estimated that renewable and carbon-neutral biomass resources of India can replace present consumption of all fossil fuels when used productively. Huge quantity of imported coal is being used in pulverized coal-fired power stations. Raw biomass cannot be used in the pulverized coal mills as they are difficult to grind into fine powder due to caking property of raw biomass. However, biomass can be used after torrefaction in the pulverized coal mills for replacing imported coal. Northwest and southern regions can replace imported coal use with torrefied biomass where surplus agriculture crop residual biomass is available. Cheaper production cost of algae oil from algae, particularly in tropical countries like India, would displace the prime position of crude oil in near future. The former President of India, Dr. A.P.J. Abdul Kalam, was a strong advocate of Jatropha cultivation for production of biodiesel. He said that out of the 6,000 km² of wasteland that is available in India, over 3,000 km² is suitable for Jatropha cultivation. Once the plant is grown, it has a useful lifespan of several decades. During its life, Jatropha requires very little water when compared to other cash crops. A plan for supplying incentives to encourage the use of Jatropha has been colored with green stripes. Hydrogen energy. Hydrogen energy program started in India after joining the IPHE in the year 2003. There are 19 other countries, including Australia, USA, UK, Japan, etc. This global partnership helps India to set up commercial use of hydrogen gas as an energy source. This will be implemented through public-private partnership. Nuclear power. India boasts a quickly advancing and active nuclear power program. It is expected to have 20 gigawatts of nuclear capacity by 2020, though they currently stand as the 9th in the world in terms of nuclear capacity. An Achilles heel of the Indian nuclear power program, however, is the fact that they are not signatories of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. This has many times in the history prevented them from obtaining nuclear technology vital to expanding the use of nuclear industry. Another consequence of this is that much of the program has been domestically developed, much like the nuclear weapons program. United States-India Peaceful Atomic Energy Cooperation Act seems to be a way to get access to advanced nuclear technologies for India. India has been using imported enriched uranium and are under International Atomic Energy Energy Agency safeguards, but it has developed various aspects of the nuclear fuel cycle to support its reactors. Development of select technologies has been strongly affected by limited imports. Use of heavy water reactors has been particularly attractive for the nation because it allows uranium to be burnt with little to no enrichment capabilities. India has also done a great amount of work in the development of a thorium-centered fuel cycle. While uranium deposits in the nation are extremely limited, there are much greater reserves of thorium, and it could provide hundreds of times the energy with the same mass of fuel. The fact that thorium can theoretically be utilized in heavy water reactors has tied the development of the two. A prototype reactor that would burn uranium-plutonium fuel while irradiating a thorium blanket is under construction at the Madras Kalpakkam Atomic Power Station. Uranium used for the weapons program has been separate from the power program, using uranium from scant indigenous reserves. Hydroelectricity. India is endowed with economically exploitable and viable hydro potential assessed to be about 84,000 megawatts at 60% capacity factor. In addition, 6,780 megawatts in terms of installed capacity from small, mini, and micro hydel schemes have been assessed. Also, 56 sites for pumped storage schemes with an aggregate installed capacity of 94,000 megawatts have been identified for catering to peak electricity demand and water pumping for irrigation needs. It is the most widely used form of renewable energy. The hydroelectric potential of India ranks 5th in terms of exploitable hydro potential on global scenario. The installed capacity of hydropower is 41,267 megawatts as of March 2015. India ranks 6th in hydroelectricity generation globally, after China, Canada, Brazil, USA and Russia in the year 2013. During the year 2013, the total hydroelectricity generation in India is 132 billion kilowatt-hours, which works out to 25,000 megawatts at 60% capacity factor. Till now, hydroelectricity sector is dominated by the state and central government-owned companies, but this sector is going to grow faster with the participation of private sector for developing the hydro potential located in the Himalaya mountain ranges including northeast of India. However, the hydropower potential in central India forming part of Godavari, Mahanadi and Narmada river basins has not yet been developed on major scale due to potential opposition from the tribal population. Pumped storage schemes are perfect centralized peaking power stations for the load management in the electricity grid. Pumped storage schemes would be in high demand for meeting peak load demand and storing the surplus electricity as India graduates from electricity deficit to electricity surplus. They also produce secondary, seasonal power at no additional cost when rivers are flooding with excess water. Storing electricity by other alternative systems such as batteries, compressed air storage systems, etc., is more costly than electricity production by standby generator. India has already established nearly 6,800 megawatts pumped storage capacity, which is part of its installed hydro power plants. Wind power. India has the 5th largest installed wind power capacity in the world. As of the 31st of March 2015, the installed capacity of wind power was 23,444 megawatts, an increase of 2,312 megawatts over the previous year. Wind power accounts nearly 8.5% of India's total installed power generation capacity and generation generated 28.314 billion kilowatt-hours in the fiscal year 2014-15, which is nearly 2.6% of total electricity generation. The capacity utilization factor is nearly 15% in the fiscal year 2014-15. The Ministry of New and Renewable Energy of India has announced a revised estimation of the potential wind power resource from 49,130 megawatts assessed at 50 meters hub heights to 102,788 megawatts assessed at 80 meters hub height at 15% capacity factor.